Okay,
And I'll
we're
start the
good to
timer
go.
too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what he wants us to do is share some points of our interview. So
Okay.
I guess we don't have to go through each individual question, but if the first one is, what differences did you or do you see in your children in their walking, talking, and teething? So if everybody wants to take a second or two to share some points from their interview on that one.
Okay, I'm just pulling my questions up right now for mine.
I've already got mine up, so I guess I'll go ahead and start. With some points with the interview that I had with the parent. One thing I noticed with her is that she was probably the first person to notice that her child may have a little bit of a delay. And she wasn't really told by anybody else or anything. She just kind of had it like in the back of her mind. And so she talked to her pediatrician about it, and her pediatrician was like, yeah, let's go ahead and get your daughter seen and get it tested and whatnot. And they said, the best thing to do was to, if there is that kind of worry from a parent, just go ahead and get the child tested. And then from there, it can either bring a relief that, oh, your child is actually just fine and, she'll catch up or whatnot. Or, yeah, let's go ahead and get them started with whatever help they might need, and hopefully they'd be able to catch up later. That's one thing I really found interesting. I think I like her pediatrician to be able to say, yeah, let's go ahead and, get her tested. Let's just check it out. Better to be safe than sorry kind of thing.
Right. And if they catch it now, then they can, work on it before, she's too old or she's too far behind. So that's good. The child that I interviewed, I interviewed his parent, but he definitely had a speech delay too. And she said that when he was teething, he especially had problems too. He would, she said he would scream like he was on fire. And she said all I could do was hold him because, he wanted that comfort, but nothing else would help. The child that was interviewed, he has autism, and right now he's 6 years old, but when he was teething, he really struggled, and he just didn't know how to socialize, like, with other people, because he would randomly get super loud, and then people are like, oh my gosh, or and they'd just be kind of scared. Like during sacrament, he's actually in my ward, and so during sacrament meetings, sometimes he'll just randomly have these random outbursts, and people have learned not to look at him, but people that are like visiting or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, but she definitely noticed a few changes when he was little, and she took him in for testing, and it turned out to be autism. So.
Well, I can bring up mine next. So I interviewed a mother who is, her youngest actually has Down syndrome. And with through the pregnancy and everything, it wasn't caught. Nobody knew until at birth. And then she actually wasn't able to be there for his teething experiences. That's one of the things that she brought up, because he was in and out of the hospital for the first couple years of his life due to the kind of the medical conditions with Down syndrome. And so that's one of the things she actually regrets, is not being able to be there for like those kinds of experiences. But as far as learning and things like that, obviously with having Down syndrome, he had a hard time learning and things like that. But she believes that his first 2 years in the hospital actually made it slower, because she's in my ward and we have two little Down syndrome boys and they're about the same age. And hers is quite a bit further behind in things like his speech and understanding speech, because he didn't get very much interaction when he was young. And so it was just kind of really interesting to hear her story about how even just the first 2 years of their life make a huge difference in learning to talk and learning to understand speech and things like that. He's 6 now and he still speaks like a 2-year-old. It's hard to understand him. He doesn't understand very many words, but it's definitely opened her eyes to how important the first 2 years of their life are.
Oh yeah, I bet.
The parent I interviewed, she has 3 daughters, and her oldest didn't show any, I guess, delays or anything in the beginning. Like as a baby, she talked and walked and everything pretty normally. It wasn't until she got into school that they noticed that she was having some trouble. The school's actually the one who I guess brought it up and told her that she was struggling and falling behind, and they found out that she had ADHD and they wanted to put her on medicine. And so she's 14 now, and she has been diagnosed with ADHD and Tourette syndrome. And she I don't know, the mother, I guess, really struggled with it. She said that she resisted it for a really long time, that she didn't want her child to be different or to be treated different. And so she just tried to ignore it. And she doesn't like medication, so she really was against medicating her for it. And then she said when they did medicate for the ADHD, she felt like that it brought the Tourette's out and made it really bad. And so they medicated for Tourette's, but that made her really depressed and sort of suicidal. And so they just had a lot of, I guess, trying to find the right solution for her learning and her social skills. And so they had a lot of problems trying to figure out the right way to handle it. And actually, she said as of the past month, she hasn't been on any medication at all and has been doing really well. So that was kind of an interesting thing that, I don't know, it seems like usually you medicate for everything, but she's been happier and doing really well without it. So, yeah, they didn't notice any early signs of it. It wasn't until she started school that, her teachers and stuff realized that she was falling a little behind and having a harder time concentrating and taking tests and whatnot with that. The next question is, did any of the children receive any special services from school? And how did you find out or come to know that your child needed that type of service?
I think autism is pretty, clear. And when you start seeing those symptoms, you either ignore them or you get really worried and you ask for help. And with this little boy, he, ever since he started going to school, he actually is a year behind in school, so he's only in kindergarten. But because of his needs, they put him in special needs programs, and he has tutoring after school, and he does Special Olympics and programs for special needs kids, and that's really helped the family be able to cope, because they'll have time after school where she can drive her other kids around and do other things. And not that the kid is a burden, but like he's just very high maintenance, and to be able to, she has 2 other kids too, and one's 12 and the other one's 9, and so they can help him with school too, as far as like the different subjects go. I mean, yeah, he's only in kindergarten, but if he falls behind in one area, like it's really hard for him to catch up. So he's in after school programs and his school day is longer than, you know, the average kids, just because he needs that extra help.
With the lady I interviewed, she was talking about her daughter because she was the one who got her tested and whatnot. They actually, at the beginning, before when she was only 2, her daughter was 2, they had a speech therapist come to the house once a week and would work with her daughter. And then now that her daughter is actually 3, she has started receiving, she now goes to a school, to the elementary school, to, sorry, my brain is not focusing right now, to go to a speech pathologist that is actually at the school, in the school system. Even though she's not yet going to preschool, that she's still receiving those services from the school, which was kind of interesting. She's got an IEP now. She's qualified for that. And it's just because for her daughter anyway, it's a delay in speech. And she's able to go and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Why not want them?
Do you want some?
So the little boy that the lady I interviewed talked about, he is not in a regular school right now. He's in more of like a preschool kind of a setting there, even though he is old enough to be going to kindergarten and things like that. Kind of the same idea of being like held back because he's in those situations. He spends about an hour a day with a speech therapist now. And then he also spends 2 hours every other day with physical therapist because he's got those physical delays as well. But the time that he does spend in this preschool program, it's actually a program specifically for special needs kids with autism and Down syndrome and things like that. And so, of course, it's a little bit different than a regular school setting and things like that. It's shorter. They only have they have 2 hours and then they are bused home for a couple hours and then they have another 2 hours later in the day. So it's a shorter day for kids that have the shorter attention span and need the additional support with people that they know and love. But he's been through several different programs as far as what he's been able to kind of find that soft spot with. He went to one for a few months where she felt like he did worse at home at that point because they were trying to push him too hard. It was a full 8-hour day there and things like that. But she likes this new one where they have a lot of one-on-one time and they have several different activities. They don't stay doing one activity for more than 30 minutes where they're teaching things at a time because they just don't focus beyond that point. But it's definitely been different for her to have to drive him around consistently, going from one place to another. And she does have 4 other kids, but they're quite a bit older, so they kind of take care of themselves. And she said her husband's had to step up a lot with this new little one. But it's definitely been a better experience to have the special needs program and the speech therapist and the physical therapist.
Is it Ariane? Am I saying that wrong?
It's Ariane. Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna let you know we've only gone through about the first 3 questions, just with like early signs of the children, and then what special services they have. If you want to go over yours real quick.
Okay, sure. So are you guys covering the questions that were in the, like, that we answered in our interview, or are you going over the questions that were in for what we were supposed to discuss?
So where it's the first one where he wanted us to briefly share some points of our interview, we're just kind of picking out like if they had early signs and if they have any special services. We're just kind of hitting the main points to go over that.
Okay, sure. I'll quickly do that. I'm sorry I'm late. I don't know. I couldn't join.
It's okay.
Anyways, so I interviewed a friend of mine who has had all of her children have had speech and language delays, and she also works at a special education school. And so basically how she said that she knew that her kids had delays is because of her educational background, but also because she noticed that all the other kids that were their same age were speaking more, had a lot more words in their vocabulary. And so after going to her pediatrician, he recommended that she have them evaluated at a school. And so she had them enrolled in early intervention through her school district and working with a speech therapist.
Okay.
Is that as far as you guys got?
Yeah, we just hit the special services. For the child of the parent I interviewed, she fell behind, I guess, at first, and because the parent struggled with accepting that there was something wrong, she had a really hard time keeping up in her classes. And they've just recently, in the past couple of years, put her on an IEP program. And so she has that extra time to finish her test. And if she gets distracted or starts having like her Tourette's tics, then she can take a test in a different class and have longer time to take it. So now she's doing really well. She can have that normal high school experience, and she's going to get a normal diploma. So having that IEP and working with the counseling staff of the school has really helped meet her needs and help her have a more normal experience. She also has a younger daughter who just tested for gifted, and so they've been using programs at the school for her on that one. So they were able to use programs through the school for both the daughter who was having a harder time and then the daughter who was a little bit ahead and learned faster than the other kids in her class. Let's see. Oh, and she learned about all those programs through the school as well. The next question is, do you have a child who has an actual diagnosed condition that is ongoing? Which we kind of covered that already. But what are some of the challenges for the parent in dealing with that? And looking back at when you found out, I guess what the challenges are in the past today and what they think they will be in the future.
Sorry to stop you. I think we're supposed to be doing a different set of questions for our group meeting. Not the ones that are in the parent interview, but the ones that are in the parent interview HOA session instructions.
That's where I'm at.
And because I see the first questions share some brief points about the interview, but then I see the next one is, after doing this interview, what's your new sense of normal, or what does normal mean to you?
Right. I guess what I was doing was just where it says briefly share some points of the interview. I guess I was just hitting main points from each of the questions. But if y'all feel like we already covered those, we can go on and just start doing how we felt about the interview. That's fine.
I think we should do the last question and then we can go into, because like just seeing what other people's challenges are will help us discover what is our new normal.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Sounds good. I'm fine either way. Sorry.
no, you're
No,
fine. I'm just looking at the other.
It doesn't matter to me. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough things to talk about for a whole 50 minutes. But if y'all think
Yeah,
we can,
I know that's a long time.
that's fine. So, Lauren, do you want to say what you thought the challenge part, I guess?
Sure. The challenge that, the family struggled with is his constant mood swings and his outbursts and just autism in general. They have a lot of just anger problems and they don't know how to control their emotions. So that's another thing that he's working on with his group for school. Because of his short attention span, he will get really fussy and kind of start getting that high maintenance problems that that he'll just need to take a break or go in another room or stuff like that. So learning to figure out how he coped was really important, but it was really hard because they didn't know, because their other kids don't have these same problems. So they had to talk to different people and talk to a counselor and just find different options to help him be able to learn how to cope and help the family learn to, find out what his triggers were and just different things like that. Another thing that that the family struggles with is the siblings get bullied because he's not normal as the other kids hear from kids at school and just different things like that, because they have a special program in that school. But with the child that's 9, she gets bullied a lot because she plays with her sibling on the playground and things like that. And I mean, she's allowed to have other friends, but it's just really hard because other kids don't understand why the child is like that. So those are just a few things that the family struggled with, and just the immediate shock of, your kid has autism. Like, it's not easy for the parents. Like, they blame themselves and just different things, but they also went to just meetings with other parents and group counseling and things like that, just to calm their nerves and see how other people cope with it, I guess. So that's my answer for that. Long story short, there's issues, but they're working on how to solve them through counseling, and the little girl comes home and she cries, and the parent will be like, okay, so here's how we can work that out. And they've talked to teachers at school to make sure that, her problems with the other kids in school are solved immediately, instead of having her wait till after school to, hold in all these emotions and then let them all go after school. So yeah, that's my long story short answer.
I'll go since she seems to be on the phone there. So when I asked this mother what like her greatest challenge was, of course she brought up the initial shock of after the birth, seeing that, having them tell her that she has a Down syndrome baby and things like that. But she said like the hardest part for her was wondering if he was going to make it, really, for those first couple years of his life, just kind of not really knowing if she'll still have her kid the next day. But since then, since that really hard medical time there, she's noticed that one of the harder things is seeing how other people look at her son and see him as different, and they kind of don't know, some of them don't know how to act around him. And she wants to just kind of reach out to him and say, just treat him like you would any other kid, like love him and be nice to him, play with him. he wants everything that any other kid would want. But she said that that's the hardest part, is seeing people treat him differently when really his basic needs and wants aren't any different than any other child's.
I can go next. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the person that I interviewed, some of her, what she mentioned as being challenges is that a lot of times, because her children were late in speaking, there was a lot of frustration and a lot of temper tantrums, and she was always, felt like she was getting after them more than she could. But on both ends, there was frustration of not being able to understand what the child needed. And then she said, working at the preschool that she works at with children who are developmentally delayed, she said she had one mom explain it to her in a way that she thought was really, really describe how it is to have a child with disabilities. And she said the mom told her, and her son had autism, and she said the mom told her that it was like when you pack your bag for Hawaii and then you get off the plane and end up in Pittsburgh. And she said it's not like Pittsburgh's a bad place, it's just a different place than you thought you were going when you find out that your child has a developmental problem or a delay. And she said, and once you get there, you have to figure out, okay, now we're not in Hawaii anymore, we're in Pittsburgh. So what do we do here? How do we handle situations? And she said, it's just, you have to look at things differently than you did before, because your child is not going to be progressing as as you had thought, or as they were going to be previously. And so kind of you have to get in a different mindset. And she said sometimes that is challenging for parents to just be okay with that and switch to a different plan or think in a different way. So that's what she mentions with some challenges with working with, for the parents, with when they find out that they have a child with special needs or transitioning to that new phase of life.
Yeah, and it's important that that these parents learn that they can still have fun with their kid. They can still love their kid, because some parents are like, you're different. Like, how am I supposed to enjoy my time with you or bond with you when you're different? Or how are the siblings supposed to do that? Like, there's still a kid who, like Michaela said, has those wants and needs just like every other kid. They want to be understood. They want to be loved. They want to, be able to socialize with other people. But with those speech delays, especially, it's so hard to be able to, or those, speech barriers too of, autism and Down syndrome and stuff like that. They just have to be able to, I don't know. I just feel like it would get really frustrating for them to be able to, this is what I want to tell you. Like, I have so much in my brain that I want to tell you, but I don't know how to express it. And I think that's really tough. But that patience and that love is, all they need.
Sorry, I was on the phone. It was with Daddy to go and pick up my son from getting hit in the face. But yeah, I guess I'll go next. Sorry.
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. With the lady I interviewed, she was telling me about her daughter, that some of the most challenging things for them, especially because it's with speeches where her daughter's delayed, is that her daughter will want something, or she'll want a snack, or she'll want a toy, or she's trying to tell you something, like a story or something, and they can't understand her. For the most part, she says that it's gotten better with the help that they've received, but there's still times where it's like she's wanting a piece of cake, or she's wanting, some pretzels or something, and they try and guess what she's wanting, and it's just like, no, that's not what I want. No, this is not what I'm trying to say. And she sees her daughter getting frustrated. And it's been hard for her because she's got two kids, and her oldest doesn't have any kind of delays, but her youngest daughter does. And so for her to kind of be with one child, you know, the older child being like, yeah, what do you want? And he can tell you, and, you know, tells you all these stories and things, and then have to kind of change her mind setting when she talks to her daughter of, okay, I don't understand you. Can you show me what you want? Can you show me this? Can you, you know, try to use your words, and, you know, different tactics of what they've taught her, what she can try and help her daughter in explaining what she wants and verbalizing what she wants. And then it becomes not hard just for the parents, but also for her older sibling to try and understand. And she says that her her oldest is actually really patient with her, which has been a great blessing in their family, because it can be very easy for them just to be like, I don't understand you, go away, you know, kind of thing, for their oldest. And so for them, it's hard to see their child struggle with something that should come, I guess, naturally, and to see that, and then to try and help them, and yet it only makes them feel like it just makes her struggle, become more frustrated instead of actually helping them.
Okay, I'll just hit a couple of mine. I think I've already talked about most of them. The daughter with ADHD and Tourette's, that the mother struggled to accept that she had a problem. She has motor and vocal tics, is what they call them, that she can't control. So it makes it really hard for her daughter to socially integrate with the other kids at school and make friends. She went through a really hard time in middle school where she didn't have any friends, and just that same struggle with the kids not understanding what was happening or why she was doing the things that she was doing, and kind of not being very nice about it and or compassionate. Even in their own family, the younger sisters were kind of the same way, that they would kind of treat her like the kids at school. They would bully her a little bit and not weren't very helpful, I guess. So the mother really struggled trying to work within her own family to make her daughter feel loved and accepted and safe at home, and also trying to deal with the she said the pain that came from her child not having any friends and not enjoying her life. And so it was really just hard for them to try to work through those years where she didn't have friends and was pretty miserable. And the challenges that she sees for the future, she thinks that they'll be easier because Tourette's typically gets better as they get older, and it's pretty much unnoticeable by the time they're an adult. So she has already seen that it's gotten better the older she gets, and she's made lots of new friends, and she still is socially awkward, I guess, but she handles it better, and that she has more people who stand up for her. So I guess with age and with time, she thinks the challenges will be less in their family and with the school, that she's controlling herself better. And I guess they're all, learning how to deal with it. And so it's working, their family's working together better in that area.
That's great.
Okay, so I guess the next question we're going to do is, after doing this interview, what is your sense of normal, or what does normal mean to you?
Well, for me, it's almost like normal is kind of like a voodoo word. You know, because I was able to interview this mother, which was great, but I also have family members who are on the autistic scale. And I have a nephew who he has a very hard time with everything. It almost seems like. And when you talk about normal, it's almost like, well, that's where everybody else is, but my child is not. And compared to, because they're supposed to be on this certain scale between, you know, for their speech, they're supposed to be between here, this, this point and this point, but yet their son falls this point, or her daughter for speech would fall, just right below. And so for me, it's kind of like with normal, it's like, this is where you are if you're normal, and this is where you are if you're not, and you're not normal. So you've got issues, basically. And I know it's probably not the greatest mindset for me to have, but for normal, that's great if you're in that normal scale, but it's not necessarily, I almost feel like other people think that it's a bad thing not to be normal. And for that normalcy to be there is what everybody strives for. And we try and help our children become normal, become up into those scales and catch up with everybody else. But sometimes we don't realize that, for where they are, that's normal for them. Yes, we're going to help them and try and help them get to where our society of normal might be, but we also need to help those who are autistic or delayed and realize that even though they may not be normal, it's still their normal, and we can work with them on their level of normal, if that makes sense. Sorry.
No, it does. I think that's a really good explanation of it. It's not a bad mindset. It's, people, I don't think anyone's normal. Like, people don't go through those same steps at the same time. Some people go a day early, some people go like a year early, and some people are just, a little bit behind and they need that extra help. And I think it's important that we realize, like I said earlier, that, everybody has needs and they have wants, and they want friends and to be loved, and, just Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just in general, like they need food, they need shelter, they need someone to love, and they need to be self-aware and to be able to love themselves and feel accomplished. And I think my new normal, I guess, is just, having people take their time. And when they need that help, to do something about it right away. Like, just personally with my struggles in life of, I've got a few disabilities and things that, hold me back a little bit, but they don't hold me back completely. Like, and I've got other siblings with, other disabilities too. And I think it's just important to realize, like, when they need that help, it's really important to get it right away instead of waiting until later, because I've seen both. I've seen, people get their help right away and they're able to get on quicker, and then, or to be able to cope better. And then I've also seen people that, don't get the help that they need right away, and then they struggle a lot more, later in life. And these kind of disabilities, they'll either affect your entire life, or when you get that help that you need right away, then you'll be able to I don't know what I'm trying to say, but they'll be able to get better quicker. I mean, I kind of think I'm going in circles here about the same point over and over, but yeah, that's what I think the new normal is. I think the new normal for me is getting help when you need it.
Lauren, I think you brought up some good points about getting help, and I think one way to determine when someone needs help is, I think there's a lot of confusion between what a milestone is and what normal is, and they're very different things. Milestones are real, and those are actually, medically documented as far as where.
Yeah, they're scientific. Yeah.
Scientific, and those should be, you do have to assess, are people meeting milestones? But but normal and milestones, I think, are two very different things, and I think no two people do anything at the same time, as you mentioned. A child doesn't walk at the same. Anyone who has more than one child knows they walk and talk and do things at different times. Does that mean one is not normal because the other one did it at a different time? Absolutely not. But they may reach milestones at different times, and that's when you need to assess how far off are we of these milestones? If we're way far off the milestone as far as speech goes, then we need to be looking into help, which is what you were mentioning. And I think with all these disabilities that we've talked about, that's what the parents and the doctors are looking at. Where are these kids as far as milestones? Not what is normal, because obviously there's not a definition for that. But what are the milestones, and how do we help them to reach or strive towards these milestones?
Yeah,
So that
thanks
was
for
my
clearing that up.
understanding.
That helps a lot. You know what I'm talking about. I'm glad someone else understands.
I get
They
it.
can get the words out better than I can.
And I like how that kind of brings up the point that, like, even though a child may not necessarily be considered normal because they don't reach those milestones at a different point in time, that doesn't really make them abnormal, as you could say. Like these children with like autism or Down syndrome, yeah, to some people that may seem like it's abnormal compared to someone without those conditions, but there's still a normal within the realm of having autism, as far as knowing like when those milestones will now be for that adjusted child. Kind of like that idea that you shared with getting off a plane and being in Pittsburgh rather than in Hawaii. It's a different place, but that doesn't mean it's not normal for that area. So like with the lady that I spoke to, the doctors no longer compare him to a quote unquote normal child. They compare him to other children with this similar condition of Down syndrome to make sure that he's reaching the levels that he should be for the circumstances that he is in, rather than giving him these almost impossible expectations. It helps him to know what is needed for him specifically, rather than just comparing him to this abstract idea of normal, if that even makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. I think that's a really good point to bring up, is that, you know, they are now compared to something realistic instead of something that's out of this world. Having other scientific information to compare them to another person just like them.
I think all of you hit really good points. It's pretty much, you know, what I have that each of you didn't cover was that I think normal is, if you're not normal, people associate that as bad or wrong, or if you're not normal, then there's something wrong with you. And I just think that normal is almost not even like a real word. It's just not even something that has a definition, because there are so many different parts of what normal is to different people. And I guess what my final definition was that normal is just anyone who has the same basic needs or desires. Like if you're a person who, most people all have the same desires and needs. And even if, like we said, some people's are a little bit different or come at different times, they're still normal. I think the only people who would be considered abnormal would be people who, I guess an example that came to mind, which might be a little bit extreme, would be like a serial killer, someone who has like those extreme needs and desires that are different from everyone else's. And that would be someone I would consider was not normal. But I think, you know, just like I said, that's just such a hard word to even define. But for the most part, I would say it's just everyone who basically just needs the same things, regardless of what times they come or go. You know, we're all the same. We all come from the same place. So no one's really, the percentage of abnormal people is going to be very small, I guess is what I'm saying. This was a hard question.
Question.
I think we're almost out of time. Looking at the last couple of questions, we kind of covered when parents found out where the delay was and how their awareness. Is there anything any of you want to cover besides what we have? The sense of resolution or acceptance or the long-term plans, anything like that that the parents may have discussed? Or did you see any themes or patterns in our interviews?
I think just the long term. I think just the long term for anyone with disabilities is to take things one day at a time, and when the plans are in motion for whatever their needs are for that disability, they can meet those needs and encourage the kid at the same time that they're doing well, and to tell them, these are things that we're working on and you're meeting these requirements, and I think you're doing a really good job. Like, just telling them that you appreciate how hard they're working is really important.
One pattern that I saw kind of in all of our discussion here when we're talking about the parents of children who are developmentally behind or have disabilities is that all parents want support and need support, and they want their children to be happy, and they want them to have the best possible outcome based on whatever it is that they're dealing with. And so I think most of us talked about how important that support is for families and how important it is for children with developmental delays to get that support that they need, and how no two children are alike. Even though we all interviewed parents of children with developmental delays, they all had different times or struggles or thoughts, so I think it's good. That's good to keep in mind too, that no child is going to be developing the same, and that's kind of a typical pattern that we see, and to not maybe try to pigeonhole people into a certain box, but keep an open mind and of people's abilities and what they're capable of is kind of a pattern that I saw in our discussion as well.
Just want to let everyone know I've got the timer up here and we're about at the 2-minute mark. So just a heads up.
Yeah, if anybody has anything else they want to say.
I don't know if there's anything. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how much time we have left, but I know for like the last 2 minutes we're supposed to kind of go through that summary.
Do you guys want me to do that, since I originally said I would and then I was late?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So I'll just briefly summarize our discussion today. We briefly covered all of our interviews and went over some of the developmental challenges that some of the parents' challenges that they face with their children in their developmental delays. We then discussed what was normal, and we came to the conclusion that normal is hard to define, and that normal based on whatever you're struggling with could be different for every person. And we talked about the difference between milestones and normal, and that while doctors may look at milestones, someone could very well be normal within the certain condition that they have. We also went over how and when parents found out that their child had a delay, and what it is that they did to seek out help and guidance. We also talked about what parents, if they were uncomfortable with the diagnosis, or if they were able to get their child the help that they need. And we discussed how important it is that we support parents and children who are struggling with developmental delays or other disabilities that might hold them back. Is there any other points that I didn't discuss in our summary that we need to hit before we sign off?
I think we got everything. What do you guys think?
Anything anyone else wants to add?
Sounded good to me.
That sounded really good.
We sound like
Yeah.
professionals.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get this link posted in our discussion board. Sorry. And then I guess, I'm sorry. How do you say your name again? Arian?
Ariane, sorry. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's really pretty.
And I guess you'll get that typed up with the summary and put that in the discussion board. Is that right?
Yep,
Then
I can totally do that.
we're good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay.
Everyone have a good day.